Gestructureerd werken is gewoon niet echt mijn kracht. En juist daarom is het heel handig om een goed softwarepakket te hebben. Ik werk zelf met Teamleader. Teamleader is de plek waar ik alle informatie bijhoud, bijvoorbeeld over klanten, waarin ik offertes maak en verstuur en die digitaal laat ondertekenen, waarin ik facturen verstuur, waarin ik lijstjes bijhoud, waarin ik projecten kan managen, waarin ik standaard e-mails kan programmeren. Kortom, ik gebruik Teamleader om alle werkprocessen van mijn bedrijf te stroomlijnen. En zeker ook als je met een team werkt, is het heel fijn om over dezelfde informatie te beschikken. Nou, als je ook benieuwd bent of er mogelijkheden zijn om jouw bedrijf meer te stroomlijnen, of je nu alleen werkt of met een team, ga even naar teamleader.nl/groeivoer en je kunt dan vandaag nog een trial starten voor 2 weken lang, gratis. En je kunt Teamleader volledig uitproberen. En na de proefperiode krijg je ook nog eens een leuke korting als luisteraar van Groeivoer. Ga naar teamleader.nl/groeivoer.
Groeivoer. Groeivoer. Zoek je inzicht, inspiratie voor je eigen bedrijf. Wil je elke dag iets leren? Luister dan naar Groeivoer.
Welcome to a new episode of the Groeivoer podcast. In this episode you will listen to Corinne Vigreux, co-founder of TomTom and founder of Codam Coding College. TomTom is a company we all know from their navigation devices. Corinne was there in the very beginning. She co-founded TomTom in 1999 and used to be the sales girl of the team, as she describes it. But when the market changed, TomTom pivoted their model. Currently, TomTom is a big provider of maps and location technology for the automotive industry. There are more than 4,000 employees working at TomTom all over the globe. Corinne is also the founder of Codam, a coding school where young people from all walks of life can become a software engineer from scratch, for free. A big percentage of these students are women. Corinne was born in Lyon, but she lives in Amsterdam with her husband. I am very curious to hear from Corinne a little more about the early days of TomTom. What challenges did she face and how did she deal with them? How to get customers as an entrepreneur? How does she manage her time? And as always, I have many more questions, so let's just dive into this new episode. Corinne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Voor de kennis en ideeën van een interessante gast die haar verhaal met jou wil delen. Luister je naar Groeivoer.
First, I would like to get my listeners to get a bit more image of you. So would you please introduce us to the small Corinne? What kind of girl were you and where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a suburb of Lyon, which is one of the second biggest city in France. About 1 million people in the center. A lot of people know Lyon because they drive through it when they go to the winter sport. And my grandparents were Italian immigrants. They arrived in 1921. They crossed the border to France to find work. And my grandfather was working for a big factory. There was all paternalistic companies in France where you had big factories, and around the factories they built the community and the housing. So that's where I grew up, in one of those housing outside Lyon. What was interesting is it was already very international. Most of the people working in the factory came from North Africa after the Algerian War in 1962. A lot of Italian immigrants like my grandparents, Portuguese, Spanish. So one of the characteristics of my youth is I grew up in a very international environment.
Cool. And what about the entrepreneurship? Is that also part of the family history?
No, not at all. I think there's what was important when I was young, I suppose, was education. So my parents, my mother starting to work, she was 14. My father never had. I was the first one in my family, let's say, to go to higher education. So I studied. I did the top of what France has offer. I did a préparatoire grandes écoles and a grande école in business and business school. And then I moved abroad. And there was by pure chance I worked for a computer games company in the late 80s called Infogram. Some of your listeners might know. They acquired Atari later on. And that's where I started my career. And I fell a bit like Asterix in the I fell into tech a bit by accident as a young girl.
Yeah. What about principles? What did your parents teach you about what's a good life and what you should strive for?
There was two things that was very important. As a woman, I think the first principle was to be financially independent. So I think that's what's important, to be able to make your own decision. Financial independence for women is important. Let's face it, when I was born in 1964, women in France could not open a bank account or have a job without having the authorization of their husband. So that was for my mother very, that was one driving thing. You need to earn your own living. And for my father, the importance was, education. And that helped explain a little bit why I set up Codam afterwards. Education is an important factor for independence. So those were the two things. Lots of books at home when I was small.
Uh-huh. So what do you teach your sons? Do you give them freedom, like, okay, find out on your own, or do you try to raise them in a certain way?
No, I think it's the same thing. I think that's basically when you have two parents are entrepreneurs and work all hours than God give, you need to, I suppose you have examples where you see your parents working hard and building something. What's interesting with my children is actually they maybe by osmosis, they kind of always worked and never had to be too much after them. They worked hard and they're now both employed. They are 28 and 26. And funnily enough, they both studied computer science. So they're both software engineers. But we never influenced them too much. Certainly not about coming and working for the business or we as long as they did well and they worked well, we gave them quite a lot of independence and freedom.
Yeah. Would you like them to take over or get involved?
I think it's important to do something that's important for you. I think that being the son of, you don't want that to define you as a person. So I think they're both chosen to work for other companies, and I respect that.
Would you like them to?
I don't know. I think it is. That's TomTom is Harold and mine sort of thing in a way. I mean, it's a big company, and we've put our heart and soul in it in the last 30 years, and pivoted, and we're the driving force behind the changes and making sure we could adapt to this ever competitive and changing world. I guess our children probably want to do that for themselves, have their own project, and I respect that.
Yeah, because for my daughters, I have two daughters, I think I would not advise them to go into entrepreneurship right away, and maybe not at all, because there's also a lot of risk. I mean, it can go very well, but it can also go down the drain, and it's stressful, and you have to work hard. So as a parent, you're always trying to protect your kids and steer them in the direction you think is the best future for them. So
but at that age, you've stopped stirring. I think we believe that education, and you bring your children, give them the needs, the education and the values, and when they reach a certain age, they fly on their own. I think it's a bit of a fallacy to think that you can keep determining your children's future. At some point, I think you give them the tools for them to make their own decisions. So if they want to work in a corporate, they're welcome. If they want to be entrepreneurs also, I think entrepreneurship is a complex thing. You need a set of attributes, if you want, that make you a successful entrepreneur. So first of all, you need to have an amount of optimism and not be scared of failure necessarily, because as you said, it's risky. You don't know, and especially an entrepreneur in technology. If you see what we've built with TomTom, it's you need a good amount of faith and belief. You need a lot of resilience, because it's not a straight line. But if at the same time, it's fantastic to be able to create something. I mean, entrepreneurs innovate, take risk, make things happen, create things. You need entrepreneurs, and being part of that journey is very satisfying. So there is no one size fits all. I think it depends on your children and personality. And if you give them the good education and they learn, they're curious, they've got good values, then I think they can be trusted to do what's right for them.
Yeah. And do you also see a connection with employees? Because you could say, well, your company is also a child, but inside the company is also many people. I could imagine sometimes you also have this kind of role, like, well, you're not their mother, of course, but
yeah, it's a different.
You want something from them, but you don't want to tell them what to do. I mean,
yeah, it's a different responsibility. I think that the people who work at TomTom have decided to work for corporates; they're not entrepreneurs, so it's a different thing. They've decided to come here. I think what people work here like is the entrepreneurial spirit, the fact that we are first of all, we're very passionate about what we do and have been for the last 30 years. We are very inclusive culture and we're accessible. So I think a lot of TomTomers, and we have a lot of boomerang people who leave TomTom and find it difficult sometimes to adapt to other culture in other companies and come back. And what they like here is that, that openness and that the fact that the company is also working on something impactful. If you look, there was a time before TomTom and after TomTom. We were the one who brought digital navigation to the world. That had a huge impact in terms of safety on the road and people daring to get into their car and driving from A to B. Before us, you had to look in your A to Z, or if you're in the UK, or look on the map. And when you're driving, it's very dangerous and it's very difficult. So we really created a completely new category. I think we went from 0 to 1 million units, the first million units faster than the mobile phone.
Yes.
So you can imagine that the demand was huge. And I always like to say that we saved a lot of marriages, so people stopped fighting in the car. But so there was a huge, there was a huge contribution from our side, and that's very, that's very satisfying.
Yeah. What's a good day for you?
Well, good day is when I'm a builder, so good day, and I'm a builder and a problem solver. So good day is when I've gone in the morning and there was a problem which I solved during the day, when I've met interesting people. So a good day, when I've had a good conversation, constructive, and when we achieved a bit more that day than the day before. So that's a good day.
Yeah. And how would you take care of your mental health?
Yeah, so I run a lot. So I run, I swim once a week. I cook. Actually, believe it or not, that's my way of relaxing. Yeah, it's being able to detach as well. And like athletes, having an hygiene of that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Because you need to also be able to think clearly. You need to make a lot of decisions. And entrepreneurs, there's a lot of decisions you make during the day. You need to be sharp. So you need to be fit.
Yeah. So is there also something to avoid? Would you say, okay, do this, but don't do that? What would you avoid?
Yeah, so I try never to tell people do or don't, because I think we all have our own way of dealing with things. I don't know, it depends on people's personality. I think what's important for me is it's to discuss things openly. I think in an organization, what can be quite finessed is when you have a lot of unsaid thing. I don't like elephant in rooms, so I'm an elephant chaser. I like to, maybe I learned that a little bit in Holland as well, to be relatively open and address issues relatively quickly, not let things fester for too long. And I think people appreciate that. I think it's treating your colleagues like equals, treating them with like adults, and addressing issues regularly. And in some companies, you have to what they call performance reviews. You do it once a quarter. I quite like addressing things on. If there is an issue, I'll address it, or good or bad, so that we can move on. So I think that's my way of dealing with stress, and also I believe in teams, working together and building trust with the team, and that's the way I build trust, and that is good for your stress level.
Yeah. And what about discussions in the boardroom about these kind of topics?
Yeah, so
Because you have one opinion and then there's the other.
No, but we are
founders.
very open. I think that's a characteristic of TomTom. There is no. We are. If you have a trusted environment, you can talk. You can express your ideas, and I think that's very important. The same way as if you have a trusted company, well, we have a lot of people working remote. That's one thing at TomTom. We did that before COVID. We still do that. We have, as you said, 5,000 colleagues all over the world. The trust is a very important aspect in our culture, and I think it's also you find that in the teams or you find that in the boardroom. There's an environment where you can express your opinion and being treated with respect.
Yeah, but I also heard something about OKRs, objectives and key results.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you give trust. On the other hand, you want to
There's performance.
have results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that one goes with the other. I think that in a trusted environment, people are more productive. They are clear about their role and responsibility, but they can do things in a more open way. But of course, we are the key results. We're a very driven organization. If you think what we've achieved and the way we've driven the change, and today we are one of 3 global map makers in the world. We are embracing a completely new way of making maps. That's massive change, and you do that by taking your people with you, explaining the North Star, where your company is going. So having clear OKRs and key results and deliverables. But you want to do this in a way that you maximize people's talent and their input. It's not a top-down necessarily. You want... I look at the organization like a lot of different talents, a lot of different point of view from different culture, different countries, different gender, and that is what is good for innovation. So that makes who we are. Trust is important.
Yeah. And what about leadership? Do you think everybody could be a leader? Because there are many entrepreneurs listening and they might have a team. And then it's always tempting to think like, okay, I need my team to step up and take initiative and tell me the right solutions. But sometimes I get the feeling that not every employee is fit for leadership. Some people just want to follow orders. How do you look at leadership? Is everybody a leader?
No, I think leadership is in today's world is extremely important. Being able to take people with you, but again, you can take people. You can tell people to water. You can't make them drink. So you need to really take time in explaining why you're doing what you're doing. Also, there's various forms of leadership. You've got leadership by example. You've got visionary leadership. So people will follow someone because they think they've got a fantastic vision, and they will feel the rest. You've got, but not everybody is a leader, and not everybody wants to be a leader. There's also quite a big responsibility with leadership. But so not everybody wants to be a leader, but I think it is something that we spend at TomTom a lot of time on that, on leadership and leadership skills and training our top leaders, especially people who are supposed to have a leadership role in the organization and helping them. And I think leadership is something that's changed dramatically. I come from a French society that's extremely hierarchical, where you follow the boss and then you don't. And to the polder model, which is we do everything together in Holland. I think it's in between. So you also need to make decisions. So a completely collaborative system doesn't always work. You need someone at the end of the day who's going to decide. You can't spend hours. You can spend hours discussing, but at the end, someone needs to make a decision. So that's also important, because otherwise you don't move on. At the same time, you don't want to impose and sort of be very prescriptive. This is not this company culture anyway, lots of hierarchical layers and being very prescriptive on what needs to be done. But we are lucky as well that we work in an organization with a lot of engineers, so you have a very educated workforce as well. What we're doing is at the cutting edge of technology. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence for making our maps. So we have quite a unique set of colleagues as well. So who like being respected and contributing to what it is that we're doing, to the objectives of the company, making the smartest map on the planet. So we are lucky in the space we are. That doesn't work for everybody and every organization, of course.
Yeah. So how do you deal with, sometimes when I walk into my office, and I don't see a lot of activity, I might think, okay, what are you guys doing the whole day? And if you have a bigger organization, you might think, okay, do I really need all these people? So there was a research conducted, I think it was in Germany, and they found that 1 out of every 12 employees was, they weren't needed for the process. What's your vision on that, or your opinion?
In some countries, it's that's the way it works. In the Japanese culture, often you have that people that are there, and that because it's their job is not there anymore, but they're being kept, so that it depends. But I think that if you look at a company like ours, where you need to be extremely agile, what we spend a lot of time on is organization. I'm a great believer in a good organization design is also a superpower, and that means that you need to very often look at role and responsibilities. But I also think it's very important for your colleagues. So you want to know in the morning, I think, that when you go to work, what am I contributing? What it is. So what do I contribute to my team? How my team contributes to the objectives of the company. So I think what's important is as leaders, that's also our role to maximize people's potential, help them be in a role where they get the most out of themselves. So they go to work in the morning and actually they enjoy, they think, okay, they're going to have a good day, or they feel the need, why am I doing this today? And I think it is important for all of us human beings, and more, if you look at this new generation, I'm going to spend a lot of time at work. What's my impact? What would not have happened if I had not been there? Yeah. So, and I think that looking at people's impact, role, and responsibility is very important. So, we spend a lot of time on that. I spend a lot of time on that, in looking in my teams and as an organization about role and responsibilities of people. On the other side, as I said to you, we are a culture based on trust. So you also expect people to say, well, look, when you have 5,000 people, that's a lot, but you have company with many more people, you don't know everybody. So you also expect that throughout leadership and management, you get the right, everybody is applying the same principle. And same thing, you apply people they want more responsibility in the organization to raise their hand and speak up. And if you have a trust organization, people will do that. So, okay, well, I've seen I think I've finished this task, or I've seen something else in the organization I'd rather do. Can I apply to this new job? And so it is part of that culture. So you need to assume that people are coming to work, have something to do, and that if they don't, they will raise their hands, and they feel that there's enough trust that they can apply for another position.
Yeah. So what would you do if you had the feeling that someone would be better off somewhere else?
Yeah, so it happens regularly when you talk to people, and you, I think with age you also develop an experience, you develop a bit of a feel where you take a risk on someone. You say, well, I think you could, especially in today's world where the jobs are changing all the time. It's not that you train as an accountant, you're going to be an accountant all your life. And so as an organization, you look at much more literal, how to move people laterally. You have jobs that didn't exist a few years ago. I mean, if you look at marketing, some of the skill set is completely changed. In the olden days, you were looking at advertising in press or campaign or billboards, and now it's growth hacking, audience definition. You use social media, a lot more content creation. So those people are. So how do you make sure that your current workforce is embracing those new roles? And it's by, as leaders, you want to give people the chance to say, okay, well, I think you would fit that well. What do you think? Or people come to you and say, look, I've been doing this for a while, but I think I'd like to try this. And if you, let's try. And if it succeeds, then that's good. If it fails, it doesn't matter. We'll try something else. I think that's also important to create an atmosphere in an organization where people are not necessarily scared to fail. Otherwise, they don't take any risk, and then you don't move forward.
Yeah. Maybe it's also nice to take a look at the origin story of TomTom. I'm sure you've talked many times about it, but could you give us a little overview from the early days?
Right, so we started with four of us, basically, three guys from Amsterdam University and me, and the they were coders, and I was doing everything else, mainly sales, marketing, but also everything else, coffee and organization. And then what we were very good at, we were making software for small handheld computers. So if you go back into the early 90s, you didn't have internet really. You didn't have data connection. So you had small computers like Scion or later on Palm Pilot, and we were making software, very easy to use software on those devices. So for meter reading or for stock counting, that sort of application. And then we were making consumer application, like we had developed a double entry bookkeeping. We had bilingual dictionaries, that sort of application. So we learned, and why is that relevant? Is because we learned how to make very easy to use software for people. So can you imagine a world where today you got an iPhone and you used it because it's very easy, but that didn't exist at the time. So you wanted to have a very easy way of using technology. And we were probably one of the precursor in making very good user interface. Fast forward, in 95, 96, we came across, there was a piece of software that Microsoft had done. It was called Microsoft Auto Express. And it was, you had to calculate your itinerary on your PC. So you wanted to go from A to B, you entered the itinerary, and then you would print a piece of paper upon MapQuest and put this and take it with you. A bit like a map, but at least it was calculating your itinerary. Of course, the first time you deviated from your route, that was it. You were lost. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be amazing if we could put this type of data on one of those handheld computers we're working with? And that's how the ideas developed, basically. And then we tested that by making the first route planner on these handheld computers we were using. And fast forward, 2004, we decided to actually start making hardware. So we were a software company developing really nice, easy-to-use software. And then in 2004, we said, okay, we're going to make an all-in-one device with a touch screen. And the brief was to the engineers is you want to buy this in the shop, put it in your car, go home. No use of a computer, anybody. It should be super easy to use.
Even een korte onderbreking met een belangrijke vraag aan jou. Want wat heb jij geregeld voor het geval je van de ene op de andere dag zou komen uit te vallen? Wat gebeurt er dan met je bedrijf, maar vooral wat gebeurt er met jou persoonlijk en ook in financieel opzicht? Samen met ASR voerde ik 3 openhartige gesprekken over tegenslag en veerkracht. En dat deed ik met Saskia, Vincent en Pieter. Ondernemers met een bloeiend bedrijf die van de ene op de andere dag niet meer konden werken. En die verhalen hoor je in aflevering 256, 257 en 258 van deze podcast. Als ondernemer wil je natuurlijk niet uitvallen. En daarom is het belangrijk dat je veerkrachtig bent, want voorkomen is beter dan genezen. En als het dan toch misgaat, is het fijn dat je iets geregeld hebt, zodat je weer snel door kunt met ondernemen. Wil je weten hoe veerkrachtig jij nu bent? Vul dan in 2 minuten de veerkrachttest van ASR in. Ga naar asr.nl/veerkrachttest ondernemers.
And we succeeded. I mean, we launched this product in 2004, and then we now sold 100 million. So we were the first one to we created, democratized digital navigation. Also something that was quite extraordinary. We were bootstrapped to IPO. So we managed to do that on the back of the application we were selling. So we always made a bit of money. We never raised any fund.
It's completely different than now. I mean,
well, also
now everybody's raising a lot of money. Well, it's cooling off now, of course, but...
Yeah, and we couldn't because we tried in 2001 and then the bubble burst and then everybody thought, oh yeah, that's nice what those guys are doing and they're a nice bunch of people, but it's obvious that navigation will come to the car. So people didn't believe that you could create a consumer electronics product. The only thing they hadn't thought about is that you had a huge amount of second-hand cars that didn't have navigation, and that navigation at the time was about 3,000 to 4,000 euro to have it built into the car. So, but nobody, because there were companies who had the maps and hardware and distribution, and so we started all of that from scratch, and we really believed that we could do this. And that's what I also said to entrepreneurs is you get a lot of advice from people and conventional wisdom, but actually you know your business. You've spent, if you're an entrepreneur in a set sector, you spend a lot of time in testing your ideas, in getting insight. You need to believe in what it is that you do because other people might not see it. And that's what makes a difference. But anyway, so we did that. The thing took off. We were just, we could not supply demand for the first 3 years. And also what people don't realize with hardware is it's very complex. So you have the part of the iceberg that you can't see, which is supply chain and logistics. So we had, 10 747 coming from China every week with full of TomToms. It was incredible the amount of supply. We went international pretty much straight away. Then we in Europe, and then we went to the US, and the thing just couldn't stop. I mean, we sold. I think the first batch we ordered from our ODMs in China was 200,000 units. We sold that in no time. And then we did 1 million units in 1 year, then 1 million in 1 month, 1 million in 1 week. And Black Friday 2008, we sold 1 million units in 1 day in the US. So this thing, it just was incredible. In 2008, the crisis hit. So not only the crisis hit, but on top of that, we also had quite a high level of penetration. We sold a lot of devices, and mobile phones became more and more powerful, and Google decided to started to bring maps on their mobile phone. So all of a sudden, all those elements arrived at the same time, our business, our consumer business, started to decline in 2008. But we kind of had predicted that this would happen. We knew we'd been in the consumer electronics business for a long time through Scion, and we knew that at some point, especially in consumer electronics, technical innovation goes quite fast. And so we had learned a lot, and we thought, well, all these experience that we have in navigation, if only we could have the mapping is what we thought was important. And that's the reason why after we went public, we decided to buy TeleAtlas. You had 2 map makers in the world, TeleAtlas and Navtech. We bought TeleAtlas, Nokia bought Navtech. And the idea was, well, we were getting map changes from our customers, and we thought, hey, if we could put all those map changes on this base map, we could have a real live map all the time. So we're bringing all those changes, so you had the best possible data on which you could route your customers. That was the idea. The idea was sound. The technology wasn't quite there, but today, all those years later, we are finally can execute on that dream, if you want, of getting the smartest map and get a map in real time. So you need vision, you need resilience, you need to not to panic when the chips start going down. You need to be able to reorganize.
Did you
adapt.
panic or?
No, we didn't panic because we had kind of anticipating things at some point will start slowing down, but.
Must have been a bit scary.
It's very scary. Yeah, it is scary, and it is. There's a lot of time where you think, are we going to make it? Are we going to be able to execute on this? So as we were, our consumer business was decreasing. We were building automotive business, and we were building a sort of an enterprise business. As you know, we are a big supplier of maps to Apple and Uber and Verizon, Microsoft. So we were building that business, but of course our consumer business was huge. So you have that whole huge business that's declining year on year, 20-30%. And then at the same time, you're growing your enterprise and your automotive business at the same time. So you have to manage this whole organization. It's huge in terms of transformation, different skill set, different...
I would be scared. I mean...
Yeah, well,
you have your own fear, and then you have so many people looking at you like for the answer.
Yeah.
Like, okay, where are we going? Yeah, we don't know. I mean,
yeah, and we were lucky to, again, as I said, Howell is very strong vision. Also the acquisition of TeleAtlas and building these maps and getting that asset right, that map right was the right thing to do. And I think that's we always managed to show that we had the path forward. And we do, because we're still here today, and with cash in the bank, and with a business that's hopefully we're guiding to growth. And I think that as we announced our Capital Markets Day, we are really turning a corner. We now have partnered with Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta. within the Linux Foundation to have one version or standardized version of the truth for basically map data, which map data is geometry and points of interest and address points. So if you look at the use case, it has changed tremendously. When we started, it was getting people from A to B in the car. Okay, so you didn't, and we empowered people to get in their car and they couldn't get lost anymore. If you look at the evolution the last few years, and the increase of e-commerce or food delivery, everything's moving. Not only people, but goods and food, and everything is moving from A to B, and the precision is more and more important. In the olden days, well, if a bridge was closed or a road, you could reroute. But today, when you're an Uber driver and you need to pick up someone, it needs to be exact position. If you pick up some food from a restaurant, it needs to be open, exist. You need to know where the kitchen is, and then the address of the customer needs to be on the map because he wants his food warm. So the use cases have evolved tremendously. And with this, the demand of good, accurate data is very important. And there's not many companies in the world that have that expertise and that can do that. And we can. Now, it's not an easy problem to solve, but we don't like easy. That's what we also managed to get. So we get tremendous engineers and that are sharing this dream of solving this problem. And also, if you look at the bigger impact of a company like TomTom, if you look at safety on the road is something that when the first sat nav came to market, we could see a decrease of deaths on the road. It was quite dramatic. So there's a big impact as well in what we do in getting things, the world a bit of a safer place. So at many levels what we do is very impactful, and it goes back to getting up in the morning and doing something that you think is meaningful.
You talked a bit about the crisis. Was there more than one moment where you thought, okay, we might not make it, or maybe I want to quit, or I'm not so sure if I want to do this anymore?
So I'm not sure we're going to make it. Yes, you always question, do you think, well, is it going to work? It's because you make big, bold decisions with your acquisition, with the way you steer the company. I mean, as you probably know, also at some point started making sports watches and went into that area because I wanted to keep the...
Would you call that a deviation or...?
Well, as I said, we had to keep the consumer business going whilst as long as possible, that revenue, while we were building the automotive and the enterprise business. At the same time, we were approached at that time also, we're working with Nike and creating a watch for them. And so yes, it was a bit of a deviation. And you're entrepreneurs, you try things, and also there we innovated. We were the first one to bring heart rate on the wrist, for example. So you push the envelope. It probably was a bit too much the brand could take, and also we were spreading ourselves a bit thin. But you don't know at the beginning. You try things. So there are moments you think, okay, is it the right choice? Are we gonna make it, and are we making the right decision? So you have signs that shows you, okay, this is a good idea probably, or you build insight, you keep getting feedback from your customers, or if you grow your order book, you know that you're doing the right thing. What we've just announced, when you see the reaction of the customers, you think, okay, we're probably on the right track. Everybody seems to think that this is a good idea. So there are moments here where you doubt. Now, the quitting, I think no, because I suppose when you feel a big responsibility as well when you run and you set up a business like this. I think both Harold and I always felt a big responsibility towards our colleagues and employees, and also the role we were playing. Again, there's only 3 companies in the world that can do what we do today. And one is, a big American company. So you think you want customers to have a choice as well. So there are many aspects that make you want to, and it's quite unique what we're doing. So not quitting.
Okay. What about advisors? Because to get a little peek behind the curtains, what kind of people really guided you in the right direction? Do you remember some people that were important?
Yeah, the one thing that people think strange is when you work with your husband. It's at the same time it's a great partnership, because we we're very complementary and very different. So I suppose that's that duo, that team is probably been a superpower, because we are very complementary from that point of view. But I can't say that I'm quite determined in what I want to do. I don't follow media advice. There's a couple of people that a couple of good friends that one of them worked in the business, who maybe I would go back and sort of lay back. And also our the two co-founders, Peter Franz and Peter. So sometimes in early 2000 when we had to make some big decisions, but we always rely on that small group of people who also understood what we were doing.
I was working on a book, and then we had a working title that was Circle of Trust. So it sounds like this is your circle of trust.
Yeah.
So what is an example of a dilemma that you put in the group? Like,
well, there was a few. I mean, one was in 2001 when we developed a lot of applications for mobile phones. At the time, Ericsson and Nokia, and those phones didn't make it to market. We developed navigation for those, plus other type of application. And we did. What do we do? Do we go and so it was just before we decided to do these the sat navs. We were a software developer. The idea of making hardware was a bit daunting. So this is the sort of thing. Those are the big leaps that you make when you come from a software to hardware company. I remember we were at CeBIT and we unveiled our first sat nav. It was a beautiful little machine, looked a bit like a small iMac, and people were saying, "You're crazy. It's never going to work. I mean, you're a software company. You know nothing about hardware, and this thing will come to the car, and you've definitely lost it." And it was very difficult at the time to assess whether this would be successful, and we didn't know either. We ensured that we brought the right people, though. I mean, we didn't go hardware just like that. We had people who had a lot of experience. So that's another thing for your listeners. Is I think it's important to very, very aware of your weaknesses and surround yourself with people who know, especially when you make these sort of big decisions. You want to bring people with experience, which is what we did. The circle of trust was, we do that the same next time as when we bought Teleatlas. I mean, this was a massive purchase. Uh-huh. It was a bit, this company was bigger than us and bigger valuation. Yeah, so do we do that? And that circle of trust where that was that's where we make the decisions.
Yeah, so that's two examples of business decisions. In business, you also need to make decisions based on how you feel about things. Did you develop it?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because it's always often asked the difference between how much is your decision are based on intuition, how much is based on fact. Now, the thing is, when you're an entrepreneur in a field that's new, there's no facts to rely on. Yeah? So if you're in a business that's existing, then you can look at history. But we didn't have any history. Our products never been made before. So you get very little. So you, as an entrepreneur, you develop a skills which is making decision in uncertain times. So with very little, with a lot of variables, so very little certainty, and that's the way you hone your intuition. So you do a lot of dingen gevoelsmatig, a lot of with intuition. At the same time, you try to hang on a few things just to corroborate, so a few facts to corroborate or help you with that decision making. But I can say that a lot of the time, especially in the type of business we're in, a lot of the time is guts and intuition, and you hone that over years. So the older you get, the better that tool is and sharper that tool is, because especially if you're in touch with, if you keep learning and analyzing the situation you're in. So it's a bit of both, but it's difficult to, in our business, there's very little to look on or to, you need to, there's some big leap of faith.
Yeah. Also, I would like to dive a bit into marketing and sales, and then I think it would be good to also go to Codam, which is also a very important project, of course. Well, I don't think we should even call it project. It's much more than that. But it strikes me that you really like marketing and sales. And I also connected to the topic of money. So there could be a thought like, if I want to make more money, I should have better marketing. But maybe you could...
Money's never been a driver for me. That's never been... Certainly, personal gain has never been a driver. It's a consequence of doing well, and that's nice. Let's face it. But it's not. It's never been what drives me. I think sales. What's interesting. I mean, I always say I'm the sales girl because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy selling. I enjoy getting people to seeing people driving with our products. I mean, I enjoy the challenge when I sold to a lot of retailers all over the world and car manufacturers, and there is something quite exciting in getting your technology and your product in the hand of someone else and solving a problem for them. And so that's the way I look at it. So sales often has a very pejorative tint to it. Well, actually, I think that's the nerve of the war. I mean, that's what makes the world go round. And I think you can't, what we do is when you develop an idea, I've seen a lot of ideas often developed by universities or whatever. If they stay in the drawer and they're not being used or sold to anyone, what's the point? So I think sales as not as a pejorative at all, but as an enabler, and that's the way of getting your product over the line. That's a way of getting at the right price, so people can enjoy it. And so I think there's a lot of, and it's interesting because I'm interested in people. There's something exciting in convincing someone that your product is the right product or the right technology. And that human interaction is something I enjoy.
What about marketing then? Because sales and marketing, they belong together. Yeah,
that's funny. So we always see the marketeers are the smart guys and the sales guys as pejorative, which I think it must be something strange into that. Marketing is helping sales. I mean, marketing is kind of, it's like in rugby, you set it up and then sales will convert, but the marketing is there to get you to sell your product, explain what it is that you do, and so I think the two needs to work hand in hand. It's getting more complex. I think marketing is clever. You need to understand your audiences, and there is some sort of strategic aspect to marketing that's also an art more than a science. But I think the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, and what importance is there for the brand? Is that important?
Yeah, brand is key. I mean, I think that when we started our first product, a year later, there were 430 different companies that came with some sort of sat-nav. So the brand protects you. Huh? So if you have the brand is always if you invest in your brand and the brand perception is that you've got good quality product, whatever you want your brand to be, that's a big protection for you. You can ask more money, and it's a protection for you for what it is that you do. So the stronger your brand is, the better it is for you as an organization. And it's very important to maintain that brand, and a brand is got a lot of longevity. So if you look at the TomTom brand is very well known globally. Now that we're doing so it's not much sat nav, but more these big technical real-time maps that we're making. There is a moment we say, okay, what do we do? Do I do it under another brand? Do I keep the brand? And
it's a hard question.
It's a hard question, but there's a lot of sympathy. So we did a big brand survey, and there's a lot of sympathy in the brand. And so we decided that it was better to keep it. But you have this association. Of course, TomTom makes sat-nav. Sat-nav is, the heydays of sat-navs are over, so TomTom is over. That's
like so Kodak and...
Yeah, so you need to go over that, and or not, because the audience we speak to, the automotive and the enterprise audience, know what it is that we do, but the consumer audience at large doesn't know anymore that actually we are the front runner on map making. But there is sympathy with the brand, and at least what we're doing is still very much in line. I mean, that navigation, that routing, traffic information. I mean, we're leading in traffic information worldwide. this was what we did in our sat nav. We now do it on another, now on telephone or in your car, and so that's not completely different than what we did before. So we kept the brand. We changed the logo.
So what if you employed 20 people and you had to build a brand? Where would you start?
Well, that's what I've done with Codam. I built a brand. So with 5 people.
Maybe we'll get back to TomTom to take a look in the future, but let's go to Codam, because you built that from scratch, or how did it start?
Yeah, we built it from scratch. So it's based out of the 42 model in France. So that's was set up by a French entrepreneur. I saw this model.
So what is that model?
So the model is a peer. So 42 it's a peer-to-peer learning coding school. So it's the idea is that you don't need any qualification to get in or any diplomas or anything. What you do is an online test, which is based on logic, and then you check in, and then you do 1 month selection months, and that is a way for us to see whether you'll be able to work with this peer-to-peer model, for the pupil or the prospective student to make sure that they like the model and they like computer science. So once they've done these months, which is, and people think, peer-to-peer learning, there is no curriculum. Actually, there is quite a strict curriculum, project-based. So on the computer, so you come in, you follow this model for a month, then based on your result, we decide whether you're fit to get in, and then it's a 2-year course roughly to get the equivalent of a bachelor. So you didn't have no teachers. You need to be in the premises. So it's there is this proper school, there's a physical location here in Amsterdam
with proper food.
With proper food, yeah. I built a restaurant next to it, so you're only joking, but I have done that with proper food. Actually, there are 50 schools now in that network all over the world. So the students can study. If you do the first 2 years in Holland, you could do the last 2 years in Paris.
So Codam is part of a bigger network.
We're part of this 42 network where there are 50 schools all over the world. And let's say the first 2 years is equivalent of a bachelor. Then you have a 6 months internship, and then you could come back and specialize in cybersecurity or AI or kernel programming or whatever. So it's a hardcore computer science course, but it's very gamified. So it's very interesting the way it's done. So no teachers, open day and night. You can work at your own pace. You work with in teams often. A cohort is about 150 students. I have about 450 students in the school at the moment. I have 31% of women, so it's interesting. Computer science is much more creative than people think, and that appeals to women as well. So we have about 10-15% of students who have no start qualification, nothing, and then we have someone who's got a PhD in physics. So we have people who've got a master in history, of art history, of psychology, or young people who want to learn a new skill. So we have a very diverse group of people. It makes it very interesting. But the best thing is to come and have a look. We have check-in days regularly, open days. A lot of people who don't like the normal education system actually thrive at Codam. And the companies who take the students are very happy as well. So we have a 100% job guarantee and a very good start salary. So it's...
So you also employ people who finish the program?
Yeah, so a few work at TomTom, but a lot of them work everywhere in Holland, so or abroad. So of course, computer science is in high demand. They're very difficult to find. So they learn the skill set, and they learn to learn in a school like this. So you go, you need to be motivated. You need to.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. You need to be driven. But it's it's a fantastic experience, and it's a great community.
How did you build that brand?
So I built the brand by, so we look for a name, and it's coding in Amsterdam. So you look at your audience and who are the people I'm going to talk to. It's going to be young people, and it's to be, I wanted a reference to coding, but also to Amsterdam. That's how we came with the name. And then we worked with an agency on the logo. I wanted to be very inclusive. So we made the space is very light, a lot of colors. The logo as well is playful, a lot of colors, but also some lines to show that it's a science exercise, so it's computer science. So yeah, you start building, you look at your audience, you build your logo, you look at your values, so you start working on your mission and your vision and your values, so and then you put them on the wall. So that's how you build a brand.
Yeah. Do you have some goals for the coding school? Because you want to be the biggest or the best or the world leader, because you're combining both roles, like you're working at TomTom and...
What I'd like to, if...
you cannot put all your time in there.
No, I've got a good team there, but the reason I do this is because I fundamentally believe that education needs to change. And the reason I've done that is to show that education can be done differently. And that's also the reason that Xavier Niel, who set it up in France. So, if at some point people come and visit and can see the success of the model, it's a very successful model. And what I'm hoping is if you look at the way education system works today, a lot of kids there were some incredible numbers that were published in the Dutch press a couple of days ago about number of kids who are out of everything. They're not going to school, they're not working, they don't have a diploma. It's just...
They're lost.
They're lost. And I think that what I want to show with Codam, and it's computer science, but it could be applying to other things, is that education can be done differently. And Ken Robinson is a bit my hero in this. He died not that long ago, but he was someone who said, look, from a very young age, we are very creative, and the education system takes all that creativity away from us. And I think that, especially with if you look at, we were talking about, how a company like TomTom has to adapt, how the whole world is adapting. Education system is the one thing that's never been really reformed. There is increment sort of changes, but there's no real reform. And
you said it's the last bastion that needs to be disrupted.
Yeah, I think it is the last. It needs to be. I don't believe it would be disrupted because it's too big and complex. But it needs to be evolved. And what I'm hoping with this is that I would have helped transform or change some part of the education system by showing with this model how things can be done differently. And with myself and other educators, that we can have some sort of influence on education as a whole. So, I've got I'm nearly 60, another hopefully 10, 15 years to go. And what I hope is that on my tombstone, there will be something about changing the education model. I also, because I run a digital company, I really believe that the have and the have-nots will be the digitally illiterate and illiterate in the next 10, 15 years. If you look at the advantage, what's happening with ChatGPT, if you look at the way technology is evolving, you want the young people to really understand what's behind those algorithms. They don't need to be all computer scientists, but they need to understand. So I would, for example, if you're gymnasium, you learn Greek and Latin. I said, well, maybe I would just put a computer language very early on, whatever, just to show that, to open, it's not black magic. It's just coding is something that's not scary. So that's the one thing, that's my aim. So it's not going to be the better stock, but it's really to bring computer science to a bigger audience. And I'm working on another project at the moment with Remain to Amsterdam in bringing after-school program for 12 to 18-year-olds, also on robotics and computer science and other activities. That digital education, I think, is absolutely crucial. And also because so many jobs have got some sort of digital component, you really want young people to, all of them, have at least a minimum of understanding of what this means.
We're going towards the final, I think, 10 minutes maybe of this interview, because you also have a busy schedule. A little bit about the future. You've been talking about big names, like you've built a platform, or there's a foundation for
Your
map
Foundation.
Yeah, exactly. And your biggest competitor?
Yeah.
as Google Maps.
Yeah.
So will there ever be an exit? Like one of the big players coming to you and saying, okay, it's time to get out?
I think that's not the point. Is always as I said, quite frankly, we could have stopped working a long time ago. I think that the reason we're doing this is really because we believe in that in what it is that we do. So the world, as I said to you, is getting more and more complex, and the demand for good quality data to power all those new use cases is really important. And we realize that we can't do it on our own. It's too expensive and it's too complex. So there's two things that have changed. Is the technology is getting better. So we've moved the cloud technology. We moved everything we were doing offline to online and using cloud technology. We now have a lot of sensor-derived observation, which means we use imageries that come from cars anonymized, but we can use that through computer vision. We can really ingest a lot of different stop signs, speed signs, geometry, everything that we can bring into the map. So that's the one part of the map, and then you've got those points of interest, and you've got address points. So if there is, can you imagine a world where we can put all of that data together? What we do up on street maps, Amazon, Metaverse. So you create all of that in a way that data is labeled in a way that it can be read by anyone, and you use your tools to make sense of it. That means that all the future use cases can be developed on top of that excellent data. That's updated all the time. So imagine a canvas with all those data points are changing all the time. You analyze them, you label them, and they can be used for all those use cases by the innovators and the developers of tomorrow. It's also important for customers. In our business, when an automotive customer, an enterprise customer decides on a supplier, it's a long-term decision. They will decide today, they will come into their product maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, and it needs to be valid for 10 years. So all those customers, all those use cases want to work with people where they know will have the best product and as open as possible. So that's what we want to do. And we also feel that the world needs a choice. You don't want to only have one party that provides that data. Geolocation data is very strategic, it's very sensitive, and I think it's important for customer to have choice. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, nice. It's time for the final question. You already have a lot of experience. It would be nice to hear from you one or maybe 2 lessons that really stand out. So my question is, if we could forget about the whole interview and everything we've heard, what final lesson would you want people to take home?
Again, work is people ask about work-life balance. When you're an entrepreneur, the two are kind of, there is not work-life balance. Your work's your life, but also even if you're not an entrepreneur, I think we spend so much time doing something. I think it's important that you do something that you feel really passionate, maybe too much, but because not everybody can be passionate about things all the time, but just direct the working time to something one enjoy. So I think that I've been privileged enough to, and I suppose it's in my character, I tend to direct and do stuff I like. And funnily enough, the stuff I like, I tend to be good at. And I think that's a bit the lesson for myself. I say, people said, you regret anything? So I don't work in regrets, but I've always done things. I've directed the work I was doing with the things that give me energy. And whether it's at TomTom, or whether it's setting up Codam, or whether it's building something, or whether it's making a pâté, it's the same thing. It just gives me energy, and we all have something that gives us energy, and it's different for all of us. But I think for me, it's worked anywhere in getting over the stressful times and keep making me curious. So that's one thing. Just directed my own life and with the stuff that give me energy. So that's one thing. And the other is that's a bit obvious, but it's the simple things in life that makes you're happy. I mean, people ask me, you've got this, you've got that. But my happiest time is when I'm with my kids and my husband and walking in the woods. That hasn't changed. That's still the same. That's the simple, easy moment with close friends, family, that are still the most cherished. And whatever that is you've done or achieved, that keeps and remains the most important.
Corinne, merci beaucoup.
You're welcome.
Gooi voor.
Gestructureerd werken is gewoon niet echt mijn kracht. En juist daarom is het heel handig om een goed softwarepakket te hebben. Ik werk zelf met Teamleader. Teamleader is de plek waar ik alle informatie bijhoud, bijvoorbeeld over klanten, waarin ik offertes maak en verstuur en die digitaal laat ondertekenen, waarin ik facturen verstuur, waarin ik lijstjes bijhoud, waarin ik projecten kan managen, waarin ik standaard e-mails kan programmeren. Kortom, ik gebruik Teamleader om alle werkprocessen van mijn bedrijf te stroomlijnen. En zeker ook als je met een team werkt, is het heel fijn om over dezelfde informatie te beschikken. Nou, als je ook benieuwd bent of er mogelijkheden zijn om jouw bedrijf meer te stroomlijnen, of je nu alleen werkt of met een team, ga even naar teamleader.nl/groeivoer en je kunt dan vandaag nog een trial starten voor 2 weken lang, gratis. En je kunt Teamleader volledig uitproberen. En na de proefperiode krijg je ook nog zo'n leuke korting als luisteraar van Groeivoer. Ga naar teamleader.nl/groeivoer.